Hello and welcome to our first episode. My name's Roy and I'm joined today by Arturo, who's been managing properties since before I was born. Art, welcome to the studio.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
Yeah, so why don't you give our audience just a little bit of background about who you are, what you do, kind of how you got to where you are today.
Sure. I started working on roofing since 1980. Um, I started my own business in 1990, kept it to, I think, 2007 or 10, somewhere in there. Um, in the course of that time, having my own business, I bought a few properties. Um, I bought 7 properties altogether in San Diego. I ended up uh, selling 2. I kept 5, but it's been a ride. And I, you know, done most work I've done is roofing. I concentrated on roofing, and that's all I've been doing all my life.
Right. Yeah. So while you've been roofing, obviously, while you've been building up your real estate portfolio, is that something that you've just been doing kind of by yourself, or did you do it with a property management company? How did that work?
Yeah, no, it's all by myself. Me and my wife, run it. She does all the paperwork, the rental agreements, and all that. And I pretty much do all the fixing of the properties. Whatever needs to be fixed, I take care of it.
Gotcha. Yeah, that's awesome. So obviously, like whenever anyone starts off in a real estate, investing in rental properties, they want to get to kind of the point where you are, where you've got a bunch of properties, a bunch of tenants. Um, I guess how did you go about purchasing that first property? Because that's something that I think a lot of people see that as just like there's a huge barrier to entry there, right? Like property is expensive here in San Diego, especially. So, how did you go about getting that first property?
Yeah, I think it's FHA loan is the easiest way. If you are a first time buyer here in California, you get like 3% is what you have to put down on a house, and that's what I did. I don't remember what it was, 1990s when I bought the first one, but whatever it was, I was able to afford that, and then the payments. As long as you can make the payment, then. But if you need to make a payment on a rent, apartment or a house, then you can make a payment on a house. So it's just basically, you know, wanting to do it.
Yeah, just making that jump. So, when you bought that first property, did you intend for it to be a rental?
No, no, that was intended to live in the house for a while. My wife didn't like the house, so I bought it anyway. But we lived there, I think 3 or 4 years, and then I was able to purchase the house that I live in right now. But that was originally just to be our home.
Gotcha. Yeah, so I guess how did the idea come about, like to get into renting? Because that's something that, like, a lot of people look at that and they're just like terrified of it, especially in California, because all yeah, there's all sorts of laws about tenants' rights and building codes, all that stuff that you have to worry about. So how did that decision happen for you?
Well, it just happened. So when I bought the second house to live in, where my wife was happy with, and all my kids, and so that house or the first house was empty. So I rented the front house, and then I built a house or a 2 bedroom on the back of the house, and then I built another 1 bedroom next to it, and that gave me the idea that just the rental income that was getting from that, it was paying for other things, and so that's when I started getting more into buying more property. Um, I think I overdid it at one point. Once I got to 7, and then 1998, I think is when the market crashed, and I had to get rid of them. Or 2, I got rid of 2 so I could keep the rest of them, basically.
Gotcha.
But otherwise, real estate is a very, very good investment.
Yeah, obviously you've done very well for yourself over the years. You said something about you added more buildings onto the same property, that first one.
Yes, so basically, it was a big lot. Really, it is a big lot. So it had a house on the front, the main house, and then on the back, I was running my business out of there when I started doing the roofing in the house. Then when I moved out of there, then I turned the back into a two-bedroom unit, and then I made another one-bedroom unit on the same lot. So
Gotcha. Yeah, that's really interesting. I mean, I see that kind of all over the city now, but like there are companies I think that'll like even buy your backyard off of you, and they'll put
yeah.
an ADU on that. Um, but back then, was that something that people were commonly doing?
Not really. I mean, there's always, construction here. New construction has always been a really good deal here in San Diego. But I don't think it was as much as now. The ADU permits that the city is allowing for in San Diego is a lot better now than it used to be back then. But it's a lot easier to get a permit now for an ADU on an existing lot, as long as you have the room for it. So it wasn't as easy as it is now, but it's always been a thing.
Gotcha. Yeah, that's cool. This episode is sponsored by Elevator Mortgage up in Irvine, offering fast, simple, and affordable home loans to help you achieve your property ownership goals. Visit them at elevatormortgage.com. And of course, by Resilient Roofing, San Diego's choice roofer since 1967. Schedule a free consultation for your property at resilientroofing.com. And back to the content. So something else that, like I met a lot of people in college who are from like out of state, different parts of the country, who look at like home prices in California and just like cost of living, high taxes, legislative kind of risks there. And really the question because I've always been interested in investing in a rental property, but the question that they would have is like, why California of all places, because of all those things. So I guess my question to you is have those obstacles ever kind of come in the way of your investment, or how do you deal with that?
No, not at all. I think, I was born and raised here in Tijuana, Mexico, so just across the border from here. And so to me, this is the way of life here in San Diego. Never lived anywhere else other than California, and the weather here is just amazing. So to me, it's never been an option to just move to a cheaper state, or, trying to move my business somewhere else. It's never been an option. I think the weather is what really kept me here, but being from here, I don't know anything else. So I think to me it's okay.
Yeah, and I mean, really what it comes down to is like the area here, like you've been here basically your whole life, right? And so I think that there's something there that just like it would be hard to transfer going to like somewhere like say in the Midwest, in the South, something like that. You just wouldn't know as much about the area. You'd have a harder time finding good deals. You'd really have a hard time doing basically everything because you're not from that area. And so I think that being from California and San Diego, we're used to pretty much everything that like people out of state find it like terrifying that we have whatever tax rate we've got, right? But we're kind of used to that. And also then the other thing is that the just in terms of dollars, the amount of rent that it's reasonable to charge here in San Diego is just way higher than in other places in the country. Like I knew someone in college who was like renting a house with one roommate, and they were each paying $500 a month. So, like, that's not something you would ever see here in San Diego. So, as an investor, you can see those higher rent prices as really that's a good thing for us, or it can be if you manage it right.
Yeah, yeah. It all depends on, you know, the the income that you get. Basically, 1985, I was living in Belmont, California. Um, I had a two-bedroom apartment, and I was paying $1,500. We're talking 1985.
Yeah, that's a lot of money.
That was a lot of money back then, but I was making, like almost, I think it was like $20 an hour back then as a roofer. Uh, I moved down in 1986 here to San Diego again, and my rent here for a house was $800 for a house here in San Diego. It's a
Wow.
big difference from San Francisco to here.
Yeah.
And my rate of pay was $20 back in San Francisco, and here I started making like $8. I started working for
Oh my
$8.
gosh.
Same work.
Uh-huh.
It's a big difference. So it just depends on, you earn more money, you're able to pay more. This is what happens in California. Everybody earns more money than if you're working in, I don't know, Arizona or some
Oh
other
yeah.
state. So, but at the same time, you pay more for, utilities, rent, everything else is expensive here.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, like my very first job in when I was in college in Colorado, I was making $10.10, and that was really good. Like I was happy with that. And then over here in California, right, our minimum wage is it $15 now or
It's 20, I think.
$20? Like
It's up to
everyone,
20,
yeah, everyone. Like you can look up at the McDonald's, and they're hiring for $20 an
20.
hour.
That's
So,
right.
so that's yeah, like everyone's got a decent amount
Yeah.
of money coming in. And so, I mean, yes, things are more expensive, but
Yeah.
as long as you can manage it right, I
Yeah.
think that there's definitely opportunity there. So, something else that I think that people are interested in, right? So, you got into property investing in the 90s, right?
Yes.
So, back then, obviously, home prices were much less expensive than they are today, by like a lot, right?
Yeah.
So something that like a lot of people in my generation see is like, oh, like all these people got in when home prices were cheap. That's not possible anymore, is what like a lot of people think. So do you think that it's still possible and a good idea to get into investing in rental property even with today's prices?
Yeah, for sure. For sure. It sounds like it's a big, amount of money to pay 800,000 for a house or $1 million now. And it is a lot of money, but in the course of, 5 to 10 years, you're gonna end up, with $200-300 equity on that house. And that's really the norm on real estate. Um, in fact, I really strongly believe that if I would not have bought any property back then, I probably wouldn't have anything right now. It's just everything that I have is really on property, and I made most of it on the property. All the money. Um, One of the houses that I sold, 2005, I think, or 2007. I had bought it on 1998, I believe, and I bought it for 100,000. When I sold it for 450,000. And just the maybe within 10 years of selling it, didn't put any money into it, just rented it out, and I had to sell it to keep the rest of them. But anyway, it was one of those things that the money was made on the property, just
Yeah, just kind
value.
of holding that. Yeah, and I think that's the thing that like a lot of people think, like they see high prices, right? And they're like, oh, this is like not possible to maintain, right? Like I mean, people have been saying it forever, like there's a housing bubble, it's gonna burst, right,
Yeah.
anytime soon. Um, but like in the end, I mean, prices just go up. I mean, in the U.S., we target a positive inflation rate that's like 2% a year. So that means like at the very least that's the amount that your property is increasing in value and more because of all sorts of other economic drivers that we could get into. But the end result is that real estate's like over a long term, it's always worth more than what you paid for it, almost always. And so the best time really to get in is today. If you didn't get in the 90s, then like, I mean, if you look back like 50 years from now, today's prices are going to look great. Like 2050, people are going to be paying like $5 million for that house. So yeah, I mean, I don't think there's really even with high prices, higher than ever, right? That's just the norm for the housing market, and things are just going to keep going that way. And so there's really, you want to find the deal today.
Yeah, when the market crashes on homes, it takes the value down a lot, and that's that would be a great time to buy if you can, but it's never a bad time to buy property. It's it doesn't matter what it is, it's always going to increase in value over the years. So if you can afford it, do it. It's no
like as long as you can make the payments.
That's right.
then you're good.
That's right.
Yeah. So something else that we deal with in California, right? Our tenants have just a lot of rights compared to everywhere else in the country. And that includes like I know the state's got like rent forgiveness programs during COVID. Like there was like an eviction moratorium or something like that. So you like weren't allowed to evict tenants for non-payment. How do you navigate that? And has that ever affected you?
It has. I had a couple of tenants that just stopped paying the rent, and it took a while to get them out. But again, the law here in California is 3 months. So they had 3 months that once they stop paying, if you file all the paperwork correctly to the court, they have 3 months to get out. So once you filed everything, they have this court hearing, they have all kinds of things going on. They give you a date where the sheriff goes to the house and gets them out. Then you change the locks, and that's it. But that's 3 full months, and that's again if you file all the paperwork correctly to the court. That's minimum. It could be more depending on how you file the paperwork. If the court returns it to you, you have to go back. You have to present the paperwork to the tenants, and all that has to be done correctly before you can get them out. But again, minimum 3 months. So that money is basically it's my responsibility to take care of the payments to the bank. My mortgage payment, they're not going to stop. So you have to be ready for that. But other than that, it's pretty easy to deal with if you do all the paperwork correctly.
Yeah, so I guess that's what it comes down to. And I mean, I'm sure anyone listening from out of state's going to hear that story and just be terrified, right? Yeah. Like, why would they ever bring an investment property to California, knowing that could happen to them, not even knowing that it will? Like, just the possibility is scary.
Right.
Because yeah, you're right. Like mortgage payments don't stop just because your tenants aren't paying. Is that something that you have to budget for, and how does that work?
Yeah, pretty much. We have an account that we just put a little bit of money every month from that income, and just have it in case that happens. It doesn't happen oftenly. During COVID, I never had any issues with any of the tenants. They all kept paying the rent, and it was all good. I know some other friends that I have, they didn't get paid for 3 or 4 months, and they had to file for some assistance from the state and that kind of thing. But I didn't have any issues with that. Again, the only problems I had is the tenants that did not want to pay at one point. But again, my wife got on to basically getting credit reports before we rented to anybody. Just get a good credit report, as long as they're probably within 7 or so. it's good because most people is trying to protect their credit at all times. So it's if they have a good credit, then they'll be good to pay the rent. So that's another thing that before you rent to somebody, you need to run a credit report, call for a job that make sure they have a job and they've been there for a while, and that kind of fixes a lot of it. It's not always not always 100% sure, but it helps a little.
Yeah, that's kind of like as as close as you can get to really knowing someone without like actually having known them like their whole life, right?
Yeah.
So what else do you like? So you call their job to screen a tenant. You run a credit check. Is there anything else that you look for?
You know what? My wife is the one that does all that kind of thing. But what I heard is she makes sure that their job is been for a while. They've been there for a while. They're responsible. Credit reports, and then call the previous apartment that they lived in, and to see if everything was good but I think that's pretty much the main thing is probably the credit reports, I think. But otherwise, you just call in and try to get some references, and that's it.
Yeah. So I mean, sounds like you and your wife have been running all these properties kind of as a team. Obviously, it's working well for you.
Yeah.
Do you think that's something that you could do on your own?
On my side, it's been easy because I do all the fixing. So I've been in constructions, doing construction since I was 19 years old. I've never done anything else. Everything is I've done. You name it on a house, I've done everything. So on that regard is easy for me. And again, the paperwork, my wife handles all of that, collecting rents and all of that is hers. But it's been easy for me because I'm in the industry. I know everything, or I do everything as far as that goes. But I think if you don't have experience on construction, then it would be a little harder for an average, couple to try to get into it, because if you start paying for a plumber or a roofer or anything like that, prices go really, really high real quick. So you won't be able to afford it. But if you know something, if you know a little bit of it, then it's easy.
Yeah, I mean, obviously we're in a roofing company. Roofing isn't cheap, right?
Yeah.
That's something that a lot of homeowners kind of like comes as a shock, right? Like they just bought a new house. They didn't check the roof, or they knew it needed to be replaced, but they weren't quite sure what that was going to entail. And so then all of a sudden they're hit with like this bill that they have to pay, right?
Yeah.
Because you can't have a roof leaking on your tenants. You can't have a roof leaking on yourself if that's the house that you're going to live in. So, I mean, that just comes down really to budgeting and kind of knowing what to expect. So when you're buying properties, do you like use a realtor, or do you like try and find stuff yourself? How does that work?
I was pretty lucky on all the properties that I bought because it just came across them. One of them, the first one I used a real estate agent, but the second one I run into a property that I was doing the roof for the owner, and he said he was from Texas. He wanted to get rid of it, and so I did the roof, and we made a deal. I bought it. Then the next one, I rented a property for my business to run my business out of it, and I ended up buying that property from the owner within a couple of years. And then I bought the one next door, same thing. It just, I'd run across them, but I never used a realtor after the first one. So everything else, I just bought it, just finding deals, finding what I wanted, and looking for what I thought it was a great deal. Then I got it. That's how I did it. But it wouldn't hurt to have a realtor,
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And those good deals, they absolutely still exist.
Yes.
Right. They haven't gone away. If you're looking in the right places, or if you know the right people, you're definitely going to be able to find one.
Right.
And I think that's also another hard part about getting into real estate, is that you're not quite sure what you're looking for. So are there anything in particular that you look for when you're doing when you're looking to buy a property?
Yeah, actually, one thing that my daughter is trying to get into that same set of mind to buy property, and I always tell her, buy something that has a duplex, like a duplex or 2 units or three, or it's always good to have more than one rental property at the same location. It just makes it easier to buy, easier to upkeep and all that. I think having, or even if you find a lot that has a big lot and just a small house in the front, then that's really something that you want to get into, because you can get a loan and build something on the back or something like that. That's mainly what I look for.
Gotcha. Yeah. So, Art, I know you're a busy man. You're taking care of a lot more than just your properties, right? You're running basically an entire roofing company here, all of our guys.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna let you go. But before we go, I wanted to ask: is there anything that you wish that you'd known when, like at the beginning, when you first got into it, or any advice that you'd want to give to someone like me who's looking to get into investment property?
Yeah, for sure. I think if I knew back then what I know now, I would have bought more property. It's just one of those things that you don't think about it, and again, at the present time, you think of, $700,000, $800,000 for a house. It's just a lot of money. But within 10 years, it's not going to be 700. It's going to be 17, or 100. Let's say something that is selling right now for 800,000. In maybe 10 years, is going to be 1,300,000, 1,800,000. You don't know. But it's not going to go down. That I can guarantee. It's not going to go down. It's going to go up. And so if I was to go back, I would buy more property for sure.
Gotcha. Gotcha. Well, thank you for coming on. It's been a pleasure to have you. We will be back next week with another guest. So thank you for watching. Until then, you take care. Have a good one. Bye-bye.
All right. Thank you for having me.